I think in honor of this episode, before you start, you should do the intro in your best Steven Seagal. Because everything.
Yeah,
says,
do I want people to hear it?
What do you mean?
I don't even have an in. What's my Steven Seagal in?
Is there one? I don't know what there is.
Okay,
there
right.
is one.
I'll do one from this movie. Second thought, I'll do it myself. See, I can't even.
It's good.
Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody. I'm just doing like generic action movie star. I don't have a good. He's inimitable. That's the problem.
You sound so sexy.
Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody, for the week of July.
This is turning into the adult book club for movies. Whoa.
24th. I'm Ryan Miller, and fire down below himself, Matt Amberg.
Fire down below me.
I am so tickled when that introduction works, depending on the movie.
And you are, and I like watching you be tickled.
And welcome back to Julykwondo, movie number 3. We've done Fearless Hyena, we've done Blonde Fury, and we're back with Fire Down Below. We'll explain why that fits in any conceivable sense here.
Yeah, I am looking forward. By the way, I'm interrupting you. I'm interrupting you just like this movie interrupted my life. I cannot wait to hear how you are going to justify.
Right, yeah.
Look, I know what I'm saying right now when I say this. This, though, is your Morbius.
Fair. How I'm going to righteously justify. I'm going to try to speak in Seagal movie titles if I could. I know that's not actually one, but it kind of sounds like one.
Righteously Justified is definitely upcoming.
See?
And that might be his name too.
Oh, instead of what do we do this time? Jack Taggart.
Jack
Is that right?
Taggart. I wrote them all down, but I just texted them to you because I thought they were also stupid.
Stupid. Awesome.
My favorite though is for On Deadly Ground, which is like Alaskan oil spill, yet another in his. It was a part of his environmentalism.
We'll get there.
Role. His name in that movie was Forrest Taft, and he has to. Yeah, it's
so good. And it just backs up what I was saying that they're good.
But I only remember one thing about that particular movie, and I'm going to share it with you right now because it has been, again, another one of those weird things that's just etched in the weird corner of my mind of why do I remember Steven Seagal? Mm-hmm. So there was a neighbor. I had a neighbor who was like, the dude was super into like UFC as it was coming out and getting into like the mixed martial arts thing. And he was just really into Jean-Claude Van Damme and loved Steven Seagal. Like this was the dude who he couldn't figure out how to dub tape. So he would just bring me his tape. Like he'd be like, hey, could you dub this for me? And, yeah, sure. Here, it's another stupid Steven Seagal movie.
When you worked at the video store?
No, I was like 10.
I was going to say, you were. Oh wow, no, even that.
This is like years as these movies were coming out. Whatever year On Deadly Ground came out, that was the year I was dubbing tapes for this idiot.
Well, how old was this guy?
Oh, he was in his 40s. Like he was a friend of my dad's. Like he was our neighbor, and he had kids and stuff. And like I babysat for him, so it wasn't like a totally random like. But and you know he would.
It wasn't too like Back to the Future-ish, you know.
No. This was not like we had the weird neighbor that just for some reason only spoke to me and then was angry at everyone.
Yeah.
No. He was.
Is your kid home?
Yeah.
Let me go get him.
Yeah.
Because back then that's what you would do. Yeah, sure. Hold on one second.
That's what you would do.
Here.
So anyways, he was desperate when this movie came out in the theater. He was like, hey, do you guys want to go? And my dad was like, yeah, let's go. And I was like, no. So I did not.
To be sure, when your dad said yes, was he a little bummed that he was going to go too? Or
no. No. He thought my dad was cool. He thought my dad was cool.
All right.
So we go and see this. And I remember nothing from it other than I'm sure that it culturally appropriates things in the most righteous way you can. But
another good Seagal title. You did it. I like that one.
But there's a moment where he punches somebody and he punches him right in the stomach and the guy throws up and he goes, ew, halibut. Like,
Oh, now I gotta watch that movie.
it's really terrible. But it's no Fire Down Below.
Hey, you know what? Let's keep going with this because I feel like I'm going to know far, or at least I did know far less about Steven Seagal, and I'm not skipping past the synopsis.
I know.
Don't worry.
No.
I think we'll do a mid-range synopsis here since, again, Julykwondo.
Yeah.
We want to get into a little bit of why that's a good name still, and we're using it. But the only thing I knew about Steven Seagal, I knew about the, how do you put it nicely? I knew he was all about
the pants pooping, but maybe that's not where you're going.
No, I didn't hear about that until last week from a friend.
What a good friend you have.
No, so I knew about, like, I knew he had training. I knew he was like half Japanese spiritually in a way. Like, I got that much about him, but really most of what I got from him was just from weird stories and much later era Steven Seagal anecdotes, you could say. I found out through research, I think I mentioned this last week, that I did see one of his movies on TV growing up. Never knew which one it was. It was Above the Law. His very first.
The very
in
first,
fact.
which I have scheduled to watch.
Never seen?
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I've seen all of his movies.
Okay, I figured it actually.
No,
yeah.
there's a point. There is definitely a point, and this was, I think, actually the point. I had never seen this one before.
Okay, so I'm both excited, and I'll be honest, this is not one of his best entries by all accounts, and
what
I maybe didn't know the extent of that until watching it, but nevertheless, I am very excited to talk about it, and I have a lot of notes concerning it.
Nevertheless, you persisted.
Being very cordial about the whole thing, as Steven Seagal would be.
As Steven Seagal would be.
Yours is better. That's true. So that's pretty much the extent of my Steven Seagal knowledge. In looking him up, confirmed he did, in fact, live in Japan. Aikido. Oh, that was the other thing I knew. I knew that Aikido was his martial art. I knew that. I've seen his Scott Adkins episode, but even before that, strangely enough, Aikido is the one martial art I've taken. There was a college course offered when I was in college, and I think I did 2 semesters. I almost said 2 years, like son-in-law style. But
oh, dude, so you're like as good as Steven Seagal.
Okay. Another large question about Steven Seagal, especially in the later years, is how legit is he? And I will say, by many counts, he is pretty legit. Certainly at the time we're talking about now in the 70s, where he did move back and forth to Japan, spent a while in Japan, is rumored to have been the first white dude to have his own dojo in Japan, Aikido dojo at the very least. But came back and forth until he ended up in the States, until he ended up in West Hollywood. I think North Hollywood originally, but moved, made the jump to West Hollywood, where at that time, if you existed in that scene, you pretty much ended up in a movie at some point. So his name got around, much like Jeff Speakman's name got around. And that's kind of why we're here, yes. If you remember last year, we did Perfect Weapon.
I'll never forget it.
You cannot.
It's impossible. It was the perfect weapon.
Excellent movie, actually.
Great.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, liked it a lot.
But that's kind of how he got into it, too. This was kind of the 80s take when Hong Kong hit it big. Hong Kong action hit it big, and it kind of bled over into the States, and then they bastardized it, for lack of a better term, but also very much turned it into something of their... I mean, American action is almost its own thing, even if
it's
it does
Americanized.
have inspirations and sure, it's whatever. But Steven Seagal was born out of that. He was a name in the martial arts field,
right.
And instead of nowadays where they take the star, teach them some martial arts, they just took the martial artist and made them stars. So enter Steven Seagal, who actually there's controversy surrounding him both in and out of the movies, and I don't want to brush by that at all either.
Oh yeah.
I want to say we're not celebrating it too, so we're going to mention it. But lately, one of those things is he's very Russian focused. In fact, he might still be the special envoy. I'm guessing it was appointed from the Russian side of things as the special envoy between the two countries. But it's because his father was actually a Russian Jewish fellow that came over, married his mother, and along comes Steven Seagal, actual name, by the way.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically begins in 88 with Above the Law and continues with, in fact,
my favorite.
What if you had to split his movies? We've kind of already done it. If you had to split up his movies between environmental movies or era
and everything else
and not, yes. Do you know his early movies in a row?
It's Above the Law, Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, and then that's when I start getting fuzzy here. Like maybe that's when On Deadly Ground starts happening.
Ooh, close. Out for Justice would have been
Out for Justice.
Yes,
that was a good one too.
And that's between 88 and 91. So just 3 years, 4 movies, and then in 92, Under Siege. So still even.
So Under Siege, all right. Under Siege is what a lot of people will refer to as a guilty pleasure. And I as we've talked about repeatedly, I don't believe in that. I either like the thing or I don't. Under Siege is a movie I do actually really enjoy. It is actually surprisingly very good, like for that era of what it is.
I want to say it's his breakout. Technically, like it was the one that kind of made a larger splash.
But and it was partially because you've got Steven Seagal, but the other part is a 2-part thing where you've got Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey.
Right.
So what are you going to do? I mean, at any point in film history in the between about 1980 and 1997, maybe, if you saw Gary Busey's name, you were like, "Oh, I'm watching that."
Maybe still even. Yes, so that's his chunk up front. I feel like if you're going to say Steven Seagal movie, that's kind of what the normal person thinks about, and then the rest, which On Deadly Ground is probably the beginning. That has an environmental bend as well.
It's the Alaskan oil thing, and he is
right.
And again,
you did just mention that,
and I feel like he's also like an EPA agent in that as well.
Is he?
It's something similar. I swear.
Let's come back to that because I didn't. That didn't click until the very end of this movie. I thought he was like FBI or CIA. I don't know. But yeah, he's an EPA agent. Mm-hmm. Oh, man. Yes. Under Siege 2, an executive decision notwithstanding, The Glimmer Man and this Fire Down Below kind of make his environmental trilogy if you end it in the 90s, I guess. And I think we probably will. We can stop and start with Fire Down Below here. We won't get into any of his direct-to-video stuff. We won't get into any of his energy drink, Steven Seagal's lightning bolt.
We're not going to talk about the Billy Crystal, George Mirasan vehicle, My Giant.
Not going to talk about that. Not going to talk about his aftershave scent of action. None of that. We're going to go straight into Fire Down Below. Matt, do you have a synopsis for Fire Down Below?
Could anybody have a synopsis for this? I don't know. I don't think anybody could, but I'm going to give you the best one I can.
All right, I'm going back to my trailer.
Go back to my trailer. I got to check my underwear.
That was my in. I'm going to my trailer. No, that still doesn't work. Sorry.
Fire Down Below coming at you at an hour and 44 minutes. Written by Jeb Stewart and Philip Morton. Directed by Felix Enriquez Alcala. Starring Steven Seagal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much, and Mark Helgenberger. And
who I think is beautiful, by the way, and talented.
By the way, we're gonna talk about that. God, this movie.
I'm not being sarcastic. You'll understand why I said it like that when we do talk about it later, yes.
Oh, I know it. Okay. Starring Steven Seagal, Mark Helgenberger, Stephen Lang, Brad Hunt, Chris Christopherson, and Harry Dean Stanton. Here is your book club for movie synopsis for Fire Down Below. An EPA agent heads to Appalachia to investigate a missing colleague and to stop any illegal toxic waste dumping he can find.
Yeah, he's an EPA agent.
He is an EPA agent that I immediately diving in right away, immediately here. I immediately believe Steven Seagal can fly a plane.
Doesn't he? That's okay. There were numerous points in this movie. No, you're shaking your head. Okay.
I do not believe Steven Seagal could fly a plane to save his life.
Okay.
Nor anybody else.
I feel like that's another one of those Steven Seagal stories, though, is that you're like, oh, he's actually a policeman. Oh, actually, he's this.
Yeah,
oh, actually, he's. I mean, at some point in this movie, I think that the pinnacle is when they go to a dance or a hoedown, and he's like, oh, I'll play guitar. And then I'm like, oh, right, he is.
I literally
he's in a
wrote,
band.
I think I literally wrote down, oh, good, he's playing guitar again. I better go buy his CDs.
Let me find my, if we word for word have the same note. Okay, so mine says word for word, oh, right, he plays the guitar. So not word for word, but pretty close. Okay,
so there are I'm sorry, keep going.
No, I think you were going.
Okay. I don't know where I'm going. One other thing that I'm going to mention that I don't know, like, I'm going to mention this because throughout the movie, in my notes, like, I have more notes. Again, it's always for these movies.
It is.
Than it is for any good movie because I'm just engrossed and I can't, and
Oh, so you're coming right out and saying this isn't a good movie.
I am coming right out and saying what I'm saying is that this is a movie that when I am engrossed in a good movie, it's hard to take notes. When I am watching a movie that I am watching, I'm not necessarily engrossed in a Steven Seagal movie at any given moment. But what I'm going to say here also, number one, I don't think he can fly a plane. Number two, the cast in this movie actually is pretty friggin' crazy. Like, there's a lot of great casting in here. Maybe my favorite part of this entire film.
Wait, you're not? I thought you were going to go into the cast a little bit there.
I'll get there. I'm going to go,
okay.
but maybe my favorite part of the film is a cast member that does not get an actual credit, because I guess it would be the wardrobe designer. And I don't know, maybe it's Steven Seagal himself, but in my notes, my copious notes, have called out every single time he changes jackets, because he does them. Not only is he changing jackets throughout a single day multiple times, he is going he's got a jacket for every mood. You know, he's like, hey, I'm going to work outside. I better wear my leather jacket. Hey,
he's got straight black leather.
He's got some straight black leather. He's got some pleather. He's got some raw, like some kind of like a hide
with fringes.
Yeah, he's got the fringy hide. He's got another, like, kind of just a regular black coat. That's
I'd say Navajo. You know, it's maybe got some Native American stylings.
Oh, definitely, yeah. He's got
appropriations, if you will.
My favorite is the leather jacket that has pink stripes on it. It was very cool. There was one that had orange.
Is this a wardrobe designer or is this Seagal?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. Whoever chose that stuff, give them an Oscar.
Because also this is so late in his career. A lot of the other stories you hear about Seagal are his refusals to do certain scenes in certain ways. Like, my second note for this movie
he started refusing to run.
I haven't heard about this. Run.
Run. Like, he won't run.
Okay.
Watch this movie. Did you see him? There are so many moments when any other human would run, and they either cut to him getting there, or he's kind of like jogging a little bit.
That's true. There is one where he's in an all-out run in the third act where he's trying to escape the cave.
And that's not even him. You know that's a stunt guy.
I don't think it is. Do you know who it probably is? And this is the guy that's not mentioned that I thought you were going to call out before you called out the wardrobe designer.
Oh, no.
It's probably Kane Hodder. Actually.
I forgot Kane was in this. Yes. Also, my buddy Jason.
Yeah. I don't think he shows up as a tough. I think he's just a stunt player, but I could be wrong.
No, but I will call out somebody in the cast that I did not mention specifically. I want to call out Mark Colley. He plays Hatch. He's the long-haired dingus that's constantly following him around. Sure. Mm-hmm. He was the most wonderful, weirdest part of Thomas Jane's Punisher movie as the character of Harry Heck. He rolls in, plays the guitar at him while he's sitting in a diner, leaves, and then they get into their fight and he gets killed. But
I need to watch that again.
Yeah. That whole song that he sings is awesome, and like it's such a great, like, perfect comic book moment that you think nobody would ever film that because it doesn't make sense. They were like, yeah, no. This character doesn't exist in the comics. Do it.
Yeah. Welcome to Thomas Jane's Punisher.
I loved it.
Yeah.
God, so much. Anyways,
No,
Fire Down Below.
Yeah, my second note for this thing is this rough? This is rough, right? It sure does seem like he's refusing to do multiple takes for some of these.
Whoa.
And speaking of whether or not he's wearing his own jackets, yeah, I get the feeling that he didn't take a ton of direction. Also, not doing a ton of acting necessarily.
Not
Seagal
doing a ton of
yeah.
anything.
Well, okay. We'll get to the action eventually, this being Julykwondo and us needing to talk about the action. But
yeah, I do want to talk about it.
I don't think he's phoning everything in necessarily. I do just think it's one of his later era movies where, yeah, you heard stories about him not necessarily willing to do everything that may have been asked for him. Like, again, being very cordial here.
Yes, very. Look,
but
this is a man that likes to do his, he's an EPA agent, okay? And Seagal had
really
to get into the mindset of an EPA agent. And what I know about his Jack Taggart EPA agent, he's a guy that's just got to get stuff done. He doesn't have time to not look good because he doesn't know when he's going to be talking to Marg Helgenberger, who's fine.
Beautiful and talented.
Yeah, well, she's all right.
Okay, we did actually mention that before we do an entire episode of what sounds like sarcasm at. So if you read the Wikipedia for Fire Down Below, which when you told me this quote, I thought, oh, good, there's going to be a lot in the Wikipedia to draw from. No, it's just they decided it was important to include this quote, and I think it probably was, much to Seagal's detriment. But he's quoted as saying, he also enjoyed working with Helgenberger. While I don't think she's a physical, spectacular, drop-dead gorgeous woman, at the same time, she's a spectacular actress, said Seagal. Her performance was wonderful.
Just, could you get a little more, like...
Unfortunately, it fits the movie, though, because speaking of the things that he has to do, yeah, he's an EPA agent that's taxed with discovering... He's going to search for why his colleague was killed. Right.
And to verify that there is toxic waste being dumped somewhere in Appalachia.
Right. And it is being dumped by a separate company headed up by Chris Christopherson and his son,
Oren, who also happens to look exactly like
Brad Hunt.
Brad Hunt, a.k.a. Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, you were fairly convinced that Hiddleston could do the role, absolutely. Brad Hunt, I think, might be one of my standouts from this film. If I were to give you two standouts, like speaking of the actors and the performances, it would be Brad Hunt as Chris Christopherson's son, as kind of the hangdog, like, when is he going to break, wild card, almost. You've seen the character before. I just think Brad Hunt does a very good job with him.
With Brad Hunt.
Oh, you're right. You haven't seen it until you've seen Brad Hunt in Fire Down Below. And obviously Harry Dean Stanton.
Hate Harry Dean Stanton.
Even though they just they've rented him to use him.
They did. This is what they seem. They rented him. They did not hire.
What it feels like, man.
They did not hire Harry Dean Stanton. They got him on
the best part. He walks into town. Harry Dean Stanton is like the dude that the movie portrays him as probably slow, or maybe just backwoods, or however that goes.
At the beginning, yeah.
The movie does play with that, Hicks and all that stuff. But he's perfect and delivers all of his lines perfectly. And then, we get the switch where, he actually knows a lot more than he's letting on, which he plays perfectly again. Yeah. And then they're basically like, okay, we've done it. Now we can have him beat up by the bad guys and lay outside for a day straight, I think, due to bad editing.
Day. It's a full day. He was out there all night.
He was. By the editing of the film, he definitely was. But yeah, so by the end, the movie tries to save itself by having Harry Dean Stanton dance a jig on his porch and actually sing the song for the closing credits.
Which was maybe...
And it might work. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Maybe one of the best.
You might have saved the entire movie. But still. Could have done more with Harry Dean Stanton.
We have to go back. I have to continue my thought here on Steven Seagal and his necessity to this is a guy who's now in the woods. He's in Appalachia. Number
Mm-hmm.
one, he is in town for like one whole day, and he rolls into town in this like, so he flies in. It meets a church pastor who's supposed to be his contact that's going to set him all up. And the cover is that he's just a nice guy. Feels good to help people. He's a carpenter, and he's going to help anybody in this tiny little town. Sure, fine, okay, great. But even when so at every moment during his carpentry, he's wearing his leather jacket and his leather shoes and his black, like, he's not changing. At some point he's like, okay, now I've got an idea. I need to test the water around here. So he's going to go do his lab tests, which of course he brings out a full table that has a whole mess of lab equipment on it, just right out next to this river.
He's a scientist, man.
He's pulling water out of the water, or he's pulling water out of the water. It's amazing. He's getting samples of water all in his leather jacket, like the full thing. He does not deviate from that look until the very end of the movie, where he finally is seen without a jacket, but he's got a very puffy shirt on.
And I think you're being generous, because where I was going with the last bit was that, yeah, he's there to figure out about the toxic waste, but while you do see him take those water samples at various points throughout the film, like, they felt like they had to put those in there, most of what he does is court Marg Helgenberger. Like the majority of his time is like hitting on her and fixing her steps when she's into it, and figuring out, because she's an outcast because she supposedly murdered her father. And I'm like, oh, well, that's probably going to figure into it later, right? More than it does. But I think I was also getting at that quote of his about her fits within the film, because even though he does spend the majority of the movie courting her instead of doing EPA agent work, he very much, like, it just kind of shepherds her around like a dog. Like, she's acting her heart out, and then it's like reverse shot, and he's like, going back to my trailer or whatever. You feel bad in a way, and then
all it proves is that Marg Helgenberger is an excellent actor, and you could give her a rock and she would do just as well. Not The Rock, but a rock.
Yeah, I'd watch a movie with her in The Rock.
Sure, why not? My fourth note in this whole thing. Okay,
good. Actually, the fourth note. Good. We're making progress.
My third note is
that I'm going backwards now.
Yeah, is that I love how this movie opens up. I love this. This is bad. This is pure 80s, 90s action movie standard, and I kind of wish we would get a little bit more of this, where everything you need to know, the very basics of why he's going to this stupid town, why he's flying, are all told in about 30 seconds through flashbacks while he's having a conversation with his boss. That's it. And we get all this is why he's going. This is where he's going. This is what he's going to be doing. Great. We're in. Immediately, he's down, meets the pastor. He's introduced. Boom. He is at somebody's house. Kids are bringing him lemonade. And my brother's always sick. Let me talk to your brother. What? And they're like, yeah, come on in. And the dad, who I actually side with here, is like giving him the side eye. Why is this guy who just came into town, who's claiming to be a carpenter, sitting on my son's bed, asking him about why he's
all the way
sick?
On the bed?
I'm pretty sure. Maybe there's a chair. But then he gets that whole like he barges into the kid's bedroom too. And just immediately
kicks the door down. Yeah, it does
almost
the whole agent note.
And then he starts talking to the kid like it's an interrogation. Like, I cannot imagine Steven Seagal having children of his own and them not having traumatic experiences every single night or every lesson that he would potentially try to teach them.
He does have children of his own. Yeah, he
horrifying.
had kids very early. In fact, he had kids while he was doing the whole back and forth with his dojo in Japan and all that.
Maybe he was better then. I don't know. But what I loved about, again, this is just so good. We go straight from him talking to this kid, the father going, yeah, I think everything's good. You can go now. And he goes, okay, I was just trying to keep the kid happy. I was trying to make him happy. He gets up, he leaves, bam, smash cut, toxic waste being dumped into like a whole area of trees. And all I could think of was I even wrote it down. That is the perfect transition for a Steven Seagal movie. I just want to help the family. Toxic waste!
The toxic waste I did enjoy, because also when he shoots a couple barrels out onto some bad guys, it's literally like it's
yeah.
If one of the bad guys had said, I don't know, at just the right moment, this would have gone up like 10 notches.
Easily. I would have loved it.
Is it? Yeah, it's I don't know was the slime, right? What was the I almost asked what was the water, but I didn't, because I know what the word you said to get the water. I like how I avoided saying it right then. But I still said it. I would have got dunked on. The mystery actually portion of this movie, not fantastic. He's talking to the son.
Is there a mystery?
Well, that's the point. Yeah, he's trying to figure out, like, at one point, he's talking to some people that are like, I see lights in those hills sometimes, like where they're dumping the toxic waste. So by the way, they're just doing it at night with a bunch of bright lights on the mountain.
Right.
Not a great mystery. But also when he hears that line, he's like, yeah, how do I get up there? I'm like, how do you get up there?
You go that
way.
Go
there, dude. Like no mystery in the history of mysteries or even just movies. Do they say, how do I get to where the bat, unless it's like, on an airship of some sort.
And then I like that he also is like, how do I get there? And Harry Dean Stanton goes, like, in the most exhausted way he could, while also making this movie still okay for him. He goes, follow me. It's just like,
So yeah, that part, nothing to write home about necessarily. Maybe we get to the action at this point, which I did mention that Aikido is his thing. I did look up a little bit on that, because I think it is kind of interesting knowing him and his movies. Hearing some of this, you'll be like, oh, that kind of makes sense. It was developed by Morihei Ueshiba, originally with the goal in mind to defend while also protecting attackers from injury, actually. So if you think about kind of his, like, I knew that he was pretty much one punch man, like you don't see a ton of extended choreography when it comes to Steven Seagal fight scenes.
Right.
He kind of just takes everybody out with one move, maybe two, if the guy gets back up afterwards or something like that,
Yeah.
This kind of makes sense in that way. Also, having taken the class, from what little I do remember of it, it was kind of amazing how, and I don't know if this was due to the practitioners or if this is probably a little bit of both, something embedded in the style. But it's kind of amazing how tightly it's worked out. Like they would put me into throws to the point where, like, I couldn't move, and it felt like they were almost bending my joints to breaking. And then by the time I hit the ground, I'd be like, oh, no, I'm actually fine. But I definitely couldn't do anything except what you wanted me to do for a few seconds there, like.
Sure.
So to hear that part about it also taking into account the attacker, which I guess most forms of Aikido still do, oh, that was pretty cool, pretty understandable. There was even one quote from Goso Shioda, who created or practiced Yoshinkan Aikido, which is considered one of the hard styles, apparently. But he says he largely follows Ueshiba's teachings from before World War II, and surmises that the secret to ki, the ki in Aikido is it's kind of like chi, although I bet people would be mad at me for saying that, but it's the energy part. He says that the secret to ki lies in timing and the application of the whole body's strength to a single point, which also sounds like Seagal in some of the action sequences I've seen him in. So a little bit more interesting considering that.
Sure. But ultimately, I think the problem with that is, unless you want your superhero or your main character to essentially be a superhero, it's not interesting to watch. Like but that's wrong too, because it is
in this movie.
No, all of his fight scenes are super interesting to watch, mostly because of the editing and a whole lot less because of him. I mean, like, there is no flow to any of these fight scenes. There's none. And if there is, it is mauled to death by the editing.
Yeah, the action, direction, editing, yeah, all of the above, not anything special, certainly, that we've talked about before during Julykwondo or otherwise. But I will say I could see the spark. Like, it doesn't really happen until he has a fight with some policemen. I don't know why. Maybe that's important. But
I mean, ACAB.
I could see a little bit of, like, if this was done well, like, I bet, again, not having seen a lot of his previous movies, I saw that and was like, oh, I bet I could see this being done right, and me being like, oh, this is awesome. Like, this movie really hits. And, even if it's not, again, choreography extensive, it's not lasting a long time. Like, I could see the whole One Punch Man, like, which I keep saying and don't get the reference, don't know anything about that anime.
Oh, yeah, it's about a dude
that punches, I thought.
Just once.
Could be wrong.
Yeah, it's actually the whole anime and like all of that stuff. He swings once, and then it's just his life after that punch.
Interesting. Much like Steven Seagal. So I could see his other movies being interesting when this was done right. But yeah, in this particular movie, not necessarily great, but I still actually enjoyed, maybe it's because it's largely my first Steven Seagal experience that I can remember. But yeah, I saw the draw. I could see the draw, certainly.
I mean, and they're fun. There's a couple of scenes that are very entertaining when he pulls out the he starts fighting. He gets surrounded by a bunch of guys at like the I don't even remember where he's at, but he's got a whole bunch of supplies in the back of his car. So he just decides to pull out like a post, and he fights all the guys with the post. And he's like, well, I don't want to keep damaging this. It's I need it for building. So instead I'll just use my hands.
Can I venture a guess why you might not remember where he was or what he was doing at the time, or in many times during this movie when we talk about things? The blocking is so strange in this thing, and I don't have any experience with Mr. Alcala, the director here. In fact, let's see what else he's done. Do you know?
No.
Known for, oh wow, he has directed 106 things, Matt. Lots of TV, looks like. Earth 2, Battlestar Galactica, Third Watch are some of his known fors. So, yep, lots of TV. Let's go back to the 80s. Any other movies? TV since the 80s, even Sliders, Lois and Clark. One episode of the Roar TV series. Is that related to the movie?
I hope not.
Shoot, man. Yeah, I think this might be the only, if not one of two actual movies, not made for TV movies, which are also movies, but I'm sorry. But yeah, this might be the only movie he's done. Anyway, but the blocking is so weird because he is, don't get me wrong, rightfully into the whole blurry background thing. Like, this is, if you're going to be a mediocre videographer for any client that'll have you, the blurry background goes a long, long way, let me tell you.
Sure.
But he does it to such an extent that the first time I noticed it was also probably the funniest. Seagal is at a party and Helgenberger is off on her own on top of a hill, so very blurry background behind her, eating some food. He goes and approaches her. They have their talk, and she's like, okay, and leaves. She's like, I'm gonna leave you now. And then the shot of her walking off is just her walking off into nowhere, like into open field. It looks like. I'm like, where is she going?
I've got to go now. And then they just turn around.
Exactly that. So that was the first time, but then there were numerous other times where I was like, where are they coming from? Like, I get it looks very pretty, but again, I have no sense of the space or where they're coming from at all, necessarily where he might be at any point. So yeah, I think if I had to venture a guess why you might have some of that would be one of them.
I also, I'd like to mention that Marg Helgenberger was keeping bees on her property. The whole honey thing.
I had a note about that too. Let's see if it's the same one here.
Oh, no. Well, mine is infuriatingly stupid and pedantic because and
that disqualifies me. How?
That does not. In fact, It probably increases the chances. So this is just one of those stupid things that I hate because they're intimating she's a beekeeper.
Okay.
She has a bunch of hives. She's down there with the smoker, and she's smoking out the bees. She takes off one of the honey, the tops. She pulls out one frame, puts the top back on, brings the top up. So number one, no, I don't think she's wearing gloves. She's not wearing a bee suit. So that's just stupid. Then on top of that, when you pull those frames, so if that frame had anything on it, you'd see it. Like, it would be visible. And you don't pull the frame out and there's no bees on. There are bees. That's what they do. They're on the frame. There are no bees on this frame. She just casually walks up to her house with a frame that is basically a brand new frame, like a plastic covered frame that they slapped in there. She pulled it out and walked away. Bees had never touched this frame. And then she walks up to her little honey extruder and just chucks it in there. And that's the last of it. And then at the end of the movie, because, oh boy, we're going to spoil this, she is gifted a whole bunch of new hives, of which she does not need, because one, the honey that she is collecting is barely selling. And at this point in the movie, while everybody still believes and still has no interest in her because they think she killed her dad, now Steven Seagal is the only one who knows that, Avatar killer guy is
Stephen Lang.
Yeah, Stephen Lang. He
plays Mark Helgenberger's brother.
He's
Earl.
the one who actually killed the father. But this information is not disseminated.
And molested Mark Helgenberger.
Yes. And
probably.
None of this information is disseminated to the townsfolk. So not only does she not need those hives because, well, she can't sell the honey that she already has, but nobody knows, and everybody's still going to treat her like she's a garbage person. Like, there's no thought to it.
So you blew right by my note. It was just that. Is beekeeping without a bee suit or gloves an actual thing? Like, I didn't know for sure, but I was like, she doesn't have any. Like, is that a thing?
Are there people that do it? Yes. Is it a thing though? Typically, no.
No, obviously she shouldn't be doing that. She's
most people. There are I'm sure that a very experienced keeper who has bees that are fairly docile, and they smoke the bees out, sure, you can do it. It's probably not that big of a deal. But you're seriously just walking up to them and going, hey, I'm going to take a thing that either has a whole mess of honey that you've now capped because I want it. So I'm going to take away your honey, or you're taking away...
Which is offensive at the very least.
Right. Or you're taking away the brood from the queen. So you're like, there goes brothers and sisters. You would at the very minimum wear a veil, because you do really want bees just going, oh, face.
I love this. This is like a low-key example of when we watched Michael Clayton, and they had the horse scene that was a very much more well-made piece of cinema, but you had an issue with the horses belonging to somebody or something like that. Anyway, go listen to that show. It's really good. Let's spoil the heck out of this entire movie, because maybe the biggest spoiler I could give right now is that I think the third act might actually save the movie for me a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's a solid.
Make it worth watching. I mean, okay. let me explain before we call it solid cinema or anything like that.
I'm not calling it solid cinema. I was going to say it's solid amounts of fun.
Okay, fair enough. There you go. But I think it all begins with, and at some point, the Chris Christopherson organization comes down on him, comes to the city, because for the majority of the movie, he's just having Brad Hunt's character do all the work for him. Plays his son, like we mentioned. But once those guys start showing up, a bit of the action starts to pop off. But also some fake FBI or, I don't know, field agents show up. It doesn't say what branch of the federal agency they're from. Obviously not EPA agents, because we know they're beyond reproach as far as this goes. But that's not true. This goes all the way to the top. Also, one of his bosses is
yeah.
crooked. Yeah. So anyway, two fake federal agents show up, one of which is Randy Travis. So
yeah, Randall.
We're headed uphill, I feel like. And then it has the moment where after he, I think, kills Randy Travis's partner is still outside in a puddle of gasoline because they're at a gas station. And Seagal takes a flare out and throws a flare at the guy. So the guy drops his gun, grabs the flare, and Seagal comes outside and is like, hey, tell your boss I'm coming for him. And the guy's like, okay, I might make it out of this. And Seagal looks like he's going to turn away. And then he turns back and he's like, no, on second thought, I'll tell him myself. And he shoots the guy, shoots the tip of the flare off. So the guy is like, uh-oh, I'm dead. But then also shoots the tip that he shot off so that the fire goes out and he doesn't end up killing the guy. From that moment, because I'll tell you what, I kind of loved that moment.
It's great. It's super stupid.
From that moment on, I kind of liked the movie quite a bit. And again, maybe not for the right reasons.
No, none of them are right.
But this is when he goes back to his boss, and I find out that, he's an EPA agent. He's not like FBI or whatever. Like the action agent they chose was EPA agent for this movie.
He loves the environment, and he wants to make sure that it's healthy and safe.
He might actually that be true, but then I don't remember if he finds out his boss is crooked right then and there, but he quits. He says, I'm out of here, because on his way out, he talks to Chris Christopherson and he's like, I quit, like now I'm basically going rogue. So I'm like, okay. And then I think tries to arrest him after quitting also is the order of things.
Maybe, sure.
I'm skipping over a lot of nut punches, by the way. I can't believe we've mentioned that yet.
There are a lot of testicular bashes.
And maybe that added to the impact of the third act, but fights all his way to Chris Christopherson. We get way more fight scenes, and where he then lets drop that, he was just kidding about when he quit. So he's actually still an agent and can still arrest. And if you have your 90s movie bingo card out, throws in a couple prison rape jokes while he's at it before.
Yes, about his friend Tyrone.
Yes.
He actually says, and I wrote this one down, I'm going to show you a new meaning to the word violation.
Which, when I heard that, I was like, that's actually like the original meaning of the word, I think, which I guess, I don't know. It's a play on Chris Christopherson's ignorance, because he's like, you don't remember what this word actually means. Technically, still. Got him.
Burned.
And he did. Yeah, nailed him. So and that's the end of that. But yeah, I'll tell you what, that third act, I kind of liked it. And yes, it does go out on Harry Dean Stanton dancing a jig on his porch while singing a song on his guitar. And
here are my last three notes. Because I want to explain this ending that we're glossing over, which is hilarious, by the way. I'm
sure I missed a few, yeah.
Okay. So, here comes the ending. Right? We're at a casino now.
Mm-hmm.
It's when he breaks to Chris Christopherson. I didn't really quit. You're going to go to jail.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Zing.
They end up in a gunfight. Christopherson is killed. Ultimately, right?
Mm.
So during this, one of the FBI agents is shot. Presumably, he is dead as he was shot dead center of the chest and went sailing backwards into glass and casino tables.
Mm-hmm.
The other FBI agent was just thrown down, and Seagal turns around, shoots him, knowing he's just in the shoulder. He gets him in the shoulder. Doesn't he?
Sounds right.
And then he walks away. He shoots him again because they've got to kill him. So number one, like Chris Christopherson really kind of gets off in the easier way by just getting shot. But then, so he gets killed, and then Seagal just leaves a frigging casino that has people in it with a dead FBI agent and now a dead Chris Christopherson. Another FBI agent who presumably again is like, dude, where are you going? There's a crime scene, a major crime scene here. And you are just, I guess the EPA does not care.
He loves his exits, man. He loves his exits. If we went back and watched this entire movie, we could probably say a thing or two about just his exits.
Okay, so that was my third note. My second to last note is
wait. Oh,
I got two more. I got two
still
more.
only to the third note.
I got two more. This is going back to the hives. This is verbatim what I wrote. He bought her more hives. The other ones were fine unless he's trying to get her more honey, but the town still doesn't like her, so what's the point?
Well, yes, they don't like her and she's not selling honey, but also the guy burned down her hives.
Did
he?
No, yeah, I don't remember her hives being burned.
Her brother did. Yeah, so Stephen Lang shows up at one point in the movie, and actually I thought that they were going to swerve with Stephen Lang. I thought he was going to end up helping, because at first he's very confrontational against the guy that's dating his sister or whatever. But then no, he ends up being even worse because Seagal, out of nowhere, there is no backing up for that whole molestation thing. Just as like, I don't think she killed her dad. I think you molested her and you killed the dad. I'm like, why did he throw that in there?
Where did that come from? Yeah, he you've known her for a matter of like 2 days, and now you've met him for like an hour tops, and you're like, oh yeah, you definitely diddled your sister and killed your dad.
He's either a little bit Sherlock, or he's just like a perverted Sherlock. He's a perverted Sherlock.
He's a pervert. Sure. I also want to point out something that's really funny, that the toxic waste barrels, at one point earlier in the movie, Chris Christopherson says that the toxic waste barrels are filled with something very specific. It's not toxic waste. He says that they're filled with cyanide.
I guess I took that as a separate shipment when he said that.
Okay, maybe it is. I don't know.
But that doesn't make sense either. No, I was thinking like, oh, he's shipping cyanide to him to poison people. But now I'm realizing that
none of it makes sense.
Okay.
So I feel like whatever. But then when that moment happens where they get into the shootout and the you can't do that on television is happening. I wrote down middle-aged mutant minor Kentuckians, because I think that's what I would call them. They're Appalachians. Okay, so then the very last note that I have on this movie.
I did enjoy that. Let the record show. I did.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The very last note I have about this movie. I do believe Dean Stockwell played and sang that song well.
Oh man, I miss Dean Stockwell also.
And I meant to say not Dean Stockwell, but I meant to say Harry Dean Stanton.
But now I'm just doubly sad. Isn't Stanton? Isn't he passed away also?
Yeah, I think both of them are
also R.I.P. Paul Walker.
Yeah,
both of them.
Yeah.
Okay. R.I.P. Paul Walker, Henry Dean Stanton, and Dean Stockwell.
Harry Dean Stanton.
Henry Dean Harry Stanton Stockwell.
Harry darn Seagal.com.
Everybody, actually, still strangely enough, go watch Fire Down Below.
It's fun.
I'd give it 30 stars
out
still.
Of 26.
That's a very high rating. Yeah, I think you meant to go the other way.
Oh, yeah.
But I can't take it back at this point.
Nope, that's it. It's real. I'm sorry, guys.
One of the
Fire Down Below.
highest
maybe
rated
one of the best movies of the year.
By Book Club for Movies. Yeah. Fire Down Below. You can find us at podcast at firedownbelow.com. That's good, gosh. Bookclubformovies.com. Facebook or Twitter, you can contact us there as well. Or Patreon, please. If any of this has been entertaining, let us know with $1 or $2. Matt,
this is going to be.
You want to know what we're doing? Sorry, what?
This is definitely going to be one of my favorite fives of the end of the
year. Do you want to know what we're doing next week?
I want to know, mostly so that I can watch it and be part of the book club for movies.
Yay! So, did you read a little Patreon post that I put up this past week? I don't require it, but sometimes you do.
I unfortunately did, and while I'm disappointed that it is not the princess,
you won't be disappointed. Trust me on this one. I did watch both because, yes, I saw the princess making the rounds. In fact, I saw Mike Micah, great follow, go find that guy, say that the princess was like the Raid in reverse, immediately getting my attention, obviously.
That is sure, yeah.
But then seen from somebody else that, oh yeah, also watched the movie he did before, which I'm gonna mispronounce his name, so I gotta look it up. Lee Van Kiet, who is actually a Vietnamese voice in the action scene, a relatively new one at that. So I was, yes, pretty excited. I was like, okay, we got a current, because I've been trying to go chronologically here. We've got a fairly current example of this. This is going to be cool. So I watched The Princess, and I watched Fury, is the other movie that I heard people say, oh, you like Princess? See the one he did before. I'm pretty sure Fury's a better movie. They're very different, and we'll talk about why, because I will still talk about The Princess for the rest of the show.
Okay. I will also attempt to watch that.
So yeah, you're welcome to watch that. It's worth watching, absolutely. But next week's show will be on Fury, Furie, in case you're familiar with any other names that sound like that title. It's a 2019 film from Lee Van Kiet. So come back next week for Fury. It'll be fun, and we'll wrap up Julykwondo for the year appropriately in August. That's how we do our theme months around here.
That's right.
Until then, Matt, I have two more. I'm keeping with it. So far, so good. Two more action movies to talk about for the rest of the show. Would you like to hear about them in conjunction, or do you want to talk about yours first? If you have any.
I have some. I would like to talk about potentially. Yes, sure.
Okay.
I've got a couple movies I could talk to you about, but
I don't know if one of them's going to be, because I have another. Okay, I watched The Gray Man.
Yeah,
I'm probably going to talk about that. Is that one of the ones?
It was.
Okay, maybe we save that for next week as part of because that'll be also another current example of action movies and.
Sure. Yeah. Could do that.
I don't want to throw a wrench in the works. You can do whatever you want.
Not at all. Not at all. That's fine.
But
I want to mention there's a The Boys season 3 just wrapped up. Somebody that I have found that I really I like Jack Quaid. That guy.
Oh yeah, I heard his mid-season check-in.
Yeah, it was great. It was good. I find him to be very funny. He's very amiable. Like he just is he's an actor that I just, when I see him on screen, I just like seeing. He's somebody that I just there are other people like that. But from he was in Logan Lucky, he was Scream. He did this tiny little movie with Maya Erskine called Plus One. It's a little romantic comedy.
Sounds familiar, actually. Oh, I mentioned it.
Yeah. It's got Beck Bennett in it, and a couple of other people that kind of pop up here and there as that you'll recognize, Ed Begley Jr. But
I will.
The movie is ostensibly it's a romantic comedy about two people who are they're friends from a long time ago, and now they're plus oneing each other to these bunches of weddings that are all happening kind of all at the same time, and that they don't really want to go to, and
fun premise.
And she is trying to wingman him because he's trying to get over his past crush, and she's just trying to figure out her stuff. And
is Jack Quaid the lead?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I think it's a delightful little movie. It was on Hulu, I think we found it, and it was something that I had seen a few times scrolling through, and I went, man, I just want to watch that. And we turned on it, and it was cute. It was fun. It's not breaking any molds, but I like those people. Maya Erskine is very funny, and her being the kind of the mess in the relationship, the friendship relationship, is very good. It works really well. And the movie's cute. Like I said, it's a fun flick. I liked it a lot.
Huh. Okay, yeah. I don't know Maya Erskine from anything, actually.
So the only reason I know her is she did a show on Hulu called Pen 15.
I see that.
And in the show, if you look at her and the other person that she does the show with, whose name I can't remember, they are like in their 30s. But they both look super young, and
Anna Konkle, quite possibly.
So they play themselves. Well, they play two high schoolers in high school, but everybody else is the right age. So like all of the other kids in the show are in high school.
Love it. The wet hot American summer treatment, which they maybe didn't invent either, but still.
It's a great show, partially because I mean that's just funny, but it also they go through a whole mess of things that girls, women go through during high school,
Yeah.
and they do it in a funny way, and it's very not sketchy, but it's very not sketch comedy, but it's very like it's a sitcom-y.
Sure.
But it's not. But it's Comedy Central. It's a little more adult. It's edgy.
So you consider yourself part of the Pen 15 Club?
I am definitely. I am definitely a member of.
Let me see your hand. Sorry, it's. I don't know if I've tried that on my daughter yet. Might be time. Although, does that make it weird? Any joke is okay. Do you want to hear the 2 other movies I watched?
I did. I do. I will, and I want to.
You're gonna love them.
Okay.
Did you ever watch the seminal Bruce Lee classic Game of Death?
Game of Death, of course.
So
it's the coolest outfit, man. That yellow outfit that he wears is so rad.
Yes, that is iconic. His fight with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, fairly iconic.
Pretty funny. I always thought
actually like it too. No, I enjoyed it.
It's a good fight, man. It's cool, especially because nobody at the time expected it. That was
sure, yeah.
like you have to
for many
remember,
reasons.
Yeah, but you have to and Kareem, to my memory, anyways, was like a huge martial arts fan. Like he was super into it.
I bet. I mean, he came up in the time,
and he really wanted to get engaged and be involved in it, and then to get in with Bruce Lee, and then to
he's
actually
probably loving it.
Then to put on a show, like to be like, yeah, dude, you got to work with Bruce Lee, and it, I mean, hell, there's a whole lot of people with lesser skills that do significantly worse in bigger movies now than he did.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. All of that is why that movie is worth watching. Some of this other stuff maybe also, but I was always under the impression that, because I knew it was the film that got made after Bruce Lee's death. I always knew that. I just assumed, I guess, that he had filmed a majority of it beforehand. And that is not true. Although I guess the report is that there are hundreds of hours of footage out there and that it might have been misplaced, which I don't know who misplaces, I guess at the time, because the thing was filmed in 72. So there's a chance. I mean, the Kung Fu explosion happened right about that time, 72, 73. We talked about, what was the movie that Warner Brothers released? I just talked about it. It was one of the ones I mentioned for the rest of the show.
36 Chambers?
No, it was on that show, though. It was the other one I talked about. Five Fingers of Death.
Five Fingers of Death, yeah.
So I guess maybe somebody could misplace a Bruce Lee movie at that time. But there isn't, what is the final count? Like 11 minutes of actual Bruce Lee in Game of Death. So they started to film it in 72. He got the offer for Enter the Dragon in 73, left filming Game of Death to do Enter the Dragon, and then died, obviously, in 73. So Game of Death sat there until finally they decided to complete it. Somehow they still got Robert Klaus to put his name on it, but also they got some people to come back for reshoots. I was just unprepared for how unfinished and obvious it was.
Sure.
How long has it been since you've seen it?
Oh, yeah, forever. Like a long time. I need to go back and rewatch his whole filmography.
So their answer was to use doubles, first of all, one of which was Yuen Biao.
All right.
From Righting Wrongs.
Yeah.
They also used recycled footage from other movies. You'll see Chuck Norris in there for the opening credits for no exact reason. They don't actually use him in the movie.
He's just there.
But they'll use stuff from Fist of Fury, and it becomes a little surreal because what they'll do is that Bruce Lee's double, their character, Billy Lowe, played by somebody else, is an actor. So the way they recycle some of that footage is they actually set up faux film sets where those movies are getting filmed. So it's a little surreal, a little weird at first, but again, the double isn't really working. The cutaways are maybe even worse. There's at one point, I thought it was superimposition, but apparently they filmed a mirror with a cutout of Bruce Lee's head. You can look this up. It exists. Like nobody's sued to get it taken down. A cutout of Bruce Lee's head on the mirror, and then the actor like sitting so that it looked like it was Bruce. And they filmed that and put it out early on in the film too.
Wow. Yeah, I don't remember that.
Check it out. And then in maybe the grossest example, they use literal footage from Bruce Lee's funeral because, and I don't know if this was in real time, but at some point they decided, it seems, that the solutions they were coming up with weren't working. So in the story, Billy Lowe fakes his own death, which luckily he gets shot in the face. There's a sentence.
Jeez.
And has to wear bandages and then also a disguise as he's faked his own death. But yeah, to do that, they use footage from Bruce Lee's actual funeral. Super gross.
Yeah.
Footage of actual Bruce Lee, or his body.
Did they shoot him in the face? Like the corpse? They're like,
essentially,
he's dead.
No, yeah.
He's dead. We need him for a movie.
Defiled, yeah. Which I guess this was still Golden Harvest. So Raymond Chow, maybe to some extent.
Yeah, it must have been up in Seattle where they filmed it, I'm guessing.
Is that?
I think that's where he's buried. That's where Brandon Lee's buried there.
Interesting. Haven't got to that part yet, obviously. No, so it doesn't. It's very strange from then on out. Besides all of the good stuff that we already mentioned, because most of actual Bruce Lee comes in that in that yellow uniform towards the end with cream, and they get more brazen from there on out. Like the doubles are wearing the same thing, but it's obviously they're not the same person. I don't know. It's probably worth seeing for several reasons. One of the other solutions they came up with was just a bunch of filler. Transitions between scenes take a while. They put in some needless fights, one of which is with Sammo Hung, which turns out Raymond Chow went to him when they decided, because Game of Death didn't come out till 1978. That was when they finally decided to put something together. Went to Sammo to do all the choreography for the reshoots. So Sammo himself shows up in a fight with the bad guy's name is Carl Miller, I believe, actually.
Your uncle.
Uncle
Carl.
And that's interesting because the next movie I watched was the second thing Sammo ever directed, called Enter the Fat Dragon. Have you ever seen that?
I've not.
Worth seeing.
With a title like that, how can it not be?
It actually does deal. Sammo plays a character who is a big Bruce Lee fan, and it appears knows Kung Fu only for that reason, from having watched the movies. Like, they don't ever go into, and knows good Kung Fu. It's not like he gets taught a lesson because he doesn't actually know Kung Fu from watching Bruce Lee movies. He holds his own quite often and does it with a really fun and entertaining Bruce Lee impression, like Bruce Lee Kung Fu impression, like doing Kung Fu like Bruce Lee. Pretty dang good. Dude. The story's a little strange, and I'm still getting used to some of the instances where I feel like Chinese cinema just does not follow the 3-act structure. And I haven't read anything on this yet, so I don't know, but it does kind of, some of the movies feel like more like vignettes necessarily than a traditional 3-act thing, which why would it have to be a 3, like, I don't know, even know the history of that, but that is probably a Western construction if I had to guess. Anywho,
I mean, if you're really getting into it, I'm pretty sure that, probably Shakespeare probably had something to do with that.
Oh, I'm sure it's out there. Yeah. Again, the active term here is that I haven't looked it up. Yes, I'm sure that's out there. I'm spouting off like I shouldn't once again.
The 3-act structure was popularized by Sid Field in his 1979 book Screenplay: The Foundations of Screenwriting. It has
79?
It has been falsely attributed to Aristotle, who in fact argued for 2-act and 16-act plays.
Wow. So, okay.
We're both stupid.
This is not a new segment where we actually look stuff up. Do not, nobody come back.
I apologize for providing correct information. I'll never do it again.
Enter the Fat Dragon is a very fun movie, very firmly a Kung Fu comedy still. Sammo's not, while it is a very early example, this is just about when Sammo and Jackie were going to start their new wave throughout the 80s. It's a great beginning to a lot of that stuff, and well worth a watch all on its own. Like I said, Sammo's whole Kung Fu Bruce Lee impression is both awesome, funny, and technically amazing still. Like some of the fights in there, especially towards the end, just a blast to watch. So There's probably a bigger discussion to be had, speaking of things that I haven't looked up and are probably out there, because he does play, this is smack dab in the middle of all the Bruceploitation stuff. Like people are looking for lookalikes still and trying to turn Hong Kong actors into them. And here comes Sammo, obviously not looking like Bruce Lee very much at all, admitting that he's a huge fan and doing a great impression. There is a bit, because when I say it's vignetted, trust me, where out of nowhere he gets picked up to play an extra in a Bruceploitation film and beats the crap out of the guy not doubling, but supposed to be Bruce Lee, and has a line somewhere along the lines of "Bruce Lee is my hero, honor him better," or something like that. So it does say something. It's just amongst a bunch of goofy skits and stuff that are also super entertaining. So Enter the Fat Dragon. Very cool. Go check it out. That's all I got this week.
All right. Me too. This has been a weird week. This month has gone by so fast.
It has.
And
this show.
It was too good. Steven Seagal makes you just want to blow through everything.
I'm telling you, wasn't that for a movie that maybe didn't tick a whole lot of boxes on anybody's radar?
God,
show.
It's infuriating. Infuriating to me.
So come back next week for Fury, and see if we're infuriated yet again on Book Club for Movies.
Yeah, I gotta go watch a movie that's gonna scrub my brain.
Fury will help, or The Princess.
It'll be. We're
gonna end with a bang.
Okay. Somebody had better explode. Bye.